recently had a conversation with Wendy Peter. Now, Wendy has been a friend of ours for a long time, and she's also the pastor of prayer and prophetic ministry at her church, The Wave in Winnipeg. So she's really had a lot to do with prayer in her life, and she's one of those people who I know has been a great intercessor and a great champion of prayer in her church, and just even to other people. And one of the questions I asked her was why she's so passionate about prayer. And I just want to play a few clips from that conversation for you here today.
Yeah, that's a really great question, Jeremy. And I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that make me passionate about it, but I had to really think about, what sparked me to initially become passionate about prayer. And I think that comes back to me not being raised in the church. And so when I discovered God and Jesus and the Bible, everything I found out came to me with almost astonishment that this could possibly be true. And so I think initially the idea of prayer was that the creator of the universe, the big guy who created all of this, the planets, the heavens, everything you see, would be willing to have a conversation with me. If there was even the remotest possibility that that was true, I wanted to be in on that. Like, I wanted to find out how to do that and to communicate with the creator. And so I remember when I was first a Christian, just the first thing I wanted to find out about was, well, how do I communicate with God? I really learned to cut my teeth on prayer, praying for your mom and dad. And I remember back to when I first had God speak to me about praying for your parents. And I had known them a little bit, but then I had a dream. And in the dream, I was helping to clean the house with your mother. I was helping to keep house and sweep the house and look after the house. And she was in and out. And I woke up from that dream and God said to me, I want you to help look after the house spiritually. And so I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I remember getting a book called Prayers That Avail Much, which was a publication, I think, in the 1980s. This is how far back this goes. And walking around with that book, praying one page at a time over your parents. And I just share that to encourage people that if you feel like prayer doesn't come easily or flow easily, or you don't feel super anointed as you pray initially, that everybody starts somewhere. And I started actually with a book, reading prayers off a page, because I had zero confidence in my ability to pray effectively for what your parents were involved with, because your dad, of course, was traveling the world as a prophet and doing these kind of things. And I felt a little bit intimidating that God would ask me to do that. But as I began to pray for those things and see a change, I began to be very encouraged. I believe God created us for relationship, and to have a relationship and an interaction with us, and even to include us in creation with Him. And that's something when we talk about prayer and different aspects of prayer, I believe that it goes far beyond just talking to God. I believe that if you become close to God in prayer, you can be part of what He's doing in a very powerful way. One incident in particular that comes to mind, I was cleaning my own house one day, and I like to pray in tongues when I'm cleaning because it's a way to pray while you're doing something else. And suddenly a very, very strong, intense feeling came for me to pray protection around your dad, Keith Hazel, to the point where I stopped everything that I was doing and I went up to my sunroom and I was pacing back and forth for about an hour, intensely praying and making declarations of protection. And I found out very shortly thereafter that at that moment your dad was in China and they were hiding behind some rocks somewhere while the police were after them. I think that, they were being persecuted. And so here I was in Canada, different time zone, different time of day, and God was alerting me to pray and keep something bad from happening. I try to really understand that when I come in prayer, all prayer is heard. I actually don't believe that there's not a single thing that I've prayed that God hasn't heard and that He's not involved with. Sometimes it's hard to know, how do I pray? It's just such a mess. My number one thing I say to people is, you don't have to know, you just need to invite God into the mess. And so sometimes my prayers are this: God, this is a mess. And so I'm inviting you into the mess with us, because that's your desire, is to be in the mess with us. And so even if we don't know the answer to the mess, we now feel your comfort because you're here with us in the mess.